This is the evening news, bringing you the latest news and information from around the world. I'm Dita Sukarno.
And I'm Rully Sukarno. The latest from Congo and reports on the special committee for the Bulogate and Brunei scandal are today's top stories. And in the ASEAN Window segment, we have reports from Vietnam and Thailand. These are the headlines. President of Congo, Joseph Kabila, says his government will pursue a policy of dialogue and reconciliation. The chairman of the Bulogate and Brunei Special Committee, Bakhtiar Hamsha, states his commitment to complete the committee's task as objectively as possible. America's Jennifer Capriati defeats Martina Hingis in the Australian Open.
You are watching the evening news.
And those were the headlines, and now over to Dita for the first report. Go ahead, Dita.
Thank you, Rully. The new president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Joseph Kabila, has gone on national television to address his country. Kabila, the son of former President Laurent Kabila, who was assassinated by one of his bodyguards last week, spent much of his speech singing the praises of his late father. Joseph Kabila was sworn in to succeed his slain father as president of the Democratic Republic of Congo yesterday, and immediately promised he would work to revive a peace deal to end civil war in his country. Kabila, 31, said his government would pursue a policy of dialogue and reconciliation. The new president succeeded his father Laurent, who was killed by one of his own bodyguards on January 16th. Fighting in the Democratic Republic, Congo's civil war has raged on despite the peace deal reached in the Zambian, capital Lusaka in 1999. Zimbabwe, Namibia and Angola have deployed troops to defend the Kinshasa government against rebels backed by Rwanda and Uganda. Kabila took the oath of office at Kinshasa's Palace of the Nation. Speaking in French, he promised to safeguard the independence and borders of the war-torn state. Diplomats said the world would be watching to see if Kabila would break new grounds or continue with his father's policies. Kabila also told the nation his government would lift a ban on the free circulation of foreign monies in Congo.
The chairman of the Bulogate and Brunei Special Committee, Bakhtiar Hamsha, today stated his commitment to complete the work of the committee as objectively as possible, regardless of pressure from special interest groups. The House Special Committee chairman stated that there has been increasing pressure and the use of terror tactics on key members of the committee, requiring the committee members to remain firm in what he called carrying out the people's mandate. Asked whether there might be attempts from the government to resort to bribery, some committee members responded that this was a possibility. The committee met for the third time this morning at 10 o'clock in closed sessions, despite the fact that the required quorum of members was not present. The agenda for the meeting was to determine how the committee will conclude its work. The special committee chairman did not specify what pressure or terror tactics have been used to try to influence the committee.
Members of the Special Committee for the Bulogate and Brunei cases noted that most of them will not attend the Halal Bihalal gathering to be held by President Abdurrahman Wahid tonight in Jakarta. Halal Bihalal gatherings are social forums for reciprocal forgiveness commonly held after the Idul Fitri celebration. Speaking to TVRI, committee member Jamal Doa noted that due to their present duties and preparations for the February 1st plenary session, most of the committee members have chosen not to attend the president's gathering. Meanwhile, committee member Mrs. Komariah noted that such gatherings between individuals are acceptable, but when the gathering is held between institutions, in this case between the legislative and the executive institution, the event is unacceptable. She also specifically said that the occasion will be in violation of the Constitution. Commenting on the prevailing results of the Special Committee investigation, Mrs. Komariah remarked that the analysis of information from available documents and those collected from witnesses leads to allegation of Gus Dur's involvement in the case. She said that the president should at least know about the fund used by suspect Suwondo.
President Abdurrahman Wahid urges Muslim clerics and Muslim to not be influenced by efforts to topple him through spreading rumors in the media, insinuating that there are fractions within the nation. Speaking before some thousands of local residents in Tanara Tirtayasa village, Serang, Banten, the president said that the differences of opinion should not be presented as disintegration. The president stated that the public needs to ignore groups that try to provoke disintegration. The president stated that despite many believing to the contrary, his health is excellent and does not inhibit out the duties of the president. His speech was warmly received by the villagers and others attending with the president, the commemoration of the 107th anniversary of the Sheikh Nawawi Al-Bantani Muslim boarding school in Serang, Banten province. Sheikh Nawawi Al-Bantani was a leading religious teacher in Hijaz, Saudi Arabia, and was a teacher of the president's grandfather. Approximately 400 Palestinian demonstrators have marched through Manhattan to protest in what they call Israeli siege of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The protest was larger than earlier Palestinian gatherings and has come as Mideast negotiations continue in Egypt. The demonstrators accuse Israel of using excessive forces against Palestinian protesters in the occupied territories and denounce the United States for its continued support of the Jewish state. Marching alongside the Palestinians was a small group of Hasidic Jews who also criticized Israel's Jewish settlement in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The Palestinian speakers at the protest rally said the violence and settlements have to stop. The Israeli Consul General in New York said he wished the protesters' energy was directed to more productive ends.
Why? To make room to the Zionist immigrants from all parts of the world.
I wish these energies would be invested into decision-making, into understanding that the deal need to be struck, into making compromises, into realizing that you have to face reality, you have to be practical, and you have to be pragmatic.
You are watching the evening news.
Chile's former strongman Augusto Pinochet is expected to remain in hospital until at least Saturday. Pinochet was rushed to Santiago's military hospital yesterday after complaining of consistent headaches. Doctors treating the retired general, who is resting a possible trial for alleged human rights abuses, said he was at risk of suffering a stroke. The former general's son of the same name told the media that his father would remain in Santiago's military hospital at least until Saturday. These are things that started in London and seem to be continuing. He will be here probably through Saturday, Marcantonio said. Pinochet's lawyer told reporters that the former strongman was admitted after showing symptoms that could have turned into a stroke. The doctors have informed us that it is a vascular problem, Pinochet's lawyer Gustavo Carlo said. He is resting and is being tended to in the intensive care unit. Pinochet's opponents claimed his admission to the hospital, where he was under observation and would undergo a test, was a ploy to convince Chilean courts he was unfit to face trial for alleged crimes committed during his 1973-1990 dictatorship.
Frantic rescue work is underway across the Indian state of Gujarat as the death toll from Friday's devastating earthquake rose to above 8,000. Rescue workers are struggling to reach thousands believed trapped by the rubble, including 30 school children. As daylight broke over Gujarat, rescue workers struggled to cope with the massive devastation wrought by Friday's earthquake. Using whatever implements they could find, teams tried to remove tons of concrete debris from collapsed buildings in the hope of reaching some of the thousands believed trapped beneath the tons of rubble. Between 7,000 to 8,000 people are now believed to have died in the earthquake, with the toll expected to rise. The quake toppled thousands of buildings in towns and cities across Gujarat, a prosperous industrial and agricultural state on India's west coast. In Ahmedabad, there was no sign of any survivors in the rubble of the wrecked buildings. One woman described a miraculous escape. She said she was brushing her teeth when she felt the building shaking, and she thought a heavy vehicle was passing. She added she was buried chest deep and there were bodies lying around her. One man complained that there was no machinery to help remove concrete slabs, which had trapped at least 20 people in one apartment building in Ahmedabad. About 30,000 people have been injured. Medical teams have been sent to the worst affected areas, and authorities were arranging for supplies of flour, milk powder, diesel, petrol and kerosene, and water tankers.
Venezuelan aviation officials continued sifting through the wreckage of a plane that crashed in a remote village in the country's Amazon region, killing all 24 passengers on board. Venezuelan investigators sifted through the charred wreckage of a DC-3 plane yesterday for clues as to why the aged twin-propeller aircraft crashed, killing all 24 people on board, including foreign tourists. The plane, owned by small local airline Rutaka, was traveling on a popular route from southern Venezuela to the Caribbean holiday island of Margarita when it plunged into a shantytown on the outskirts of Ciudad Bolivar just after 6 p.m. on Thursday. The 18 foreign tourists who died were 3 U.S. citizens, 3 Canadians, 5 Dutch, 4 Italians, 2 Hungarians, and 1 Austrian. Hopefully by Sunday or Monday, we will be able to transfer the cadavers to Caracas and from Caracas to Holland, Dutch Ambassador Robert G. Prink said. We have received very good assistance from the Venezuelan authorities. The 6 Venezuelans on board, including 3 crew members, were also killed when the aircraft, which had been trying to return to Ciudad Bolivar Airport shortly after takeoff, plunged into the shantytown.
1,000 cattle have been quarantined in Texas as American officials investigate whether they have been given feed banned by rules designed to prevent mad cow disease. The American Food and Drug Administration are investigating the possible contamination of a 1,000-strong herd of Texas cattle, following fears that the company had provided feed containing animal protein. Animal protein is banned from feed in the United States in a bid to protect the country's livestock from an outbreak of so-called mad cow disease, which has so far been confined to Europe. The cattle are being held in quarantine until health officials can determine if they are at risk. Results are expected on Monday when the FDA meets to examine the case. In Washington, D.C., Gary Weber, Executive Director of Regulatory Affairs at the National Cattlemen and Beef Association, downplayed the scare, saying it was a feed control issue and that the investigation was just an added layer of protection. Meanwhile, at a major livestock show in Fort Worth, Texas, cattle farmers expressed their concerns. Cattle farming teacher Monty Williams was particularly concerned that the disease should be prevented before it became an issue for the U.S. livestock industry. The animal disease is caused by cattle eating contaminated animal protein, and in turn, this can be transmitted to humans who eat the contaminated beef.
The Minister of Justice and Human Rights, Yusril Ihza Mahendra, said that the draft national emergency bill will not take a militaristic approach, nor will it ignore human rights. Answering questions from reporters on the fate of the bill prior to opening the National Assembly of the 66th generation yesterday, the Minister of Justice and Human Rights, Yusril Ihza Mahendra, said that in order to replace the draft national emergency bill, a new one will be put together by a new team, and it will take into consideration the wishes of the public, which are that the bill will not take a militaristic approach nor ignore human rights. Yusril said that the planned decree will be discussed with the speakers of the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Laskar Ampera 66th generation, Arif Biki, said that the organization is still concerned with carrying out means to uphold the law and the abolishment of corruption, collusion, and nepotism.
At the Bogor Palace, President Abdurrahman Wahid met with chief editors of the Indonesian media and reporters who usually covers the activities of the president. At the gathering, the president was accompanied by the president's secretary, Abdul Mujib Manan, the president's spokesperson, Wimar Witular, and daughter Yeni. The gathering was in relation to the celebration of Christmas, Idul Fitri, New Year, and the Chinese New Year. The dialogue between the president and reporters was off the record, so that they may be able to converse freely about any issues. The questions asked included the president's comment on the rallies, asking his resignation to what he considers as the most difficult task. The meeting was attended not only by Indonesian reporters but also foreign journalists.
The first Indonesian flight of 405 Hajj that embarked from Medan arrived at the King Abdulaziz Airport in Jeddah Friday and were greeted by the Indonesian ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Baharudin Lopa. Separately in Madinah, 450 Hajj pilgrims who embarked from Jakarta arrived and were greeted by the Director General of Guidance of Muslim Public and Hajj Matters, Taufik Kamil. Other arrivals will soon follow from Surabaya and Jakarta. The direct flight to Medina is a first. This year, the number of Hajj pilgrims is estimated at 205,000 people.
A new toolkit to help volunteers and non-government organizations promote public awareness of the importance of conserving the environment has recently been introduced by Natural Resources Management. This is expected to facilitate the dissemination of information to the public of the significant role of environmental conservation to ensure the sustainability of human life in the future. Lack of comprehension among residents of forest areas, as well as a lack of firm sanctions against those causing environmental damage, contribute to the severity of environmental disasters in Indonesia. Commenting on this, USAID expert Graham, who has worked for years in East Kalimantan, note that it has been over 30 years since the beginning of the New Order era, and the government is still unable to change the behavior of local inhabitants from having a negative effect on the environmental to becoming protectors of the environment. Another environmental expert, Reed Merrill, noted that the residents of forest area are still ill-equipped with the necessary skills to increase their income through ways other than by using up forest resources.
An inaugural Boeing 737 flight to Yogyakarta today marked the operational opening of Jatayu Air, Indonesia's newest airline.
Speaking to reporters at the official opening of Jatayu Air's office in Yogyakarta, President Director Sutina noted that the operation of the new airline is expected to cope with the current lack of flight services. Following the prolonged economic crisis, many airlines had to close down in response to sharp decreases in the number of passengers. Yogyakarta Sultan Hamengkubuwono II warmly welcomed the operation of the new airline and expressed his satisfaction that it will provide a wider alternative to customers. For the first phase, Jatayu Air will operate the Jakarta-Yogyakarta-Denpasar route. The airline will soon also schedule flights within Yogyakarta and Johor, Malaysia. According to Jatayu Air Managing Director Alexander Lumowa, the airline is fully committed to ensure passengers' safety and convenience and to enhance the development of Indonesia's airline industry.
The mission is to firstly for the safety, make a safety and economical with our performance also, and for the customer itself.
You are watching the evening news.
Continuing with reports from the Asian TV News Exchange, we have news from Vietnam and Thailand.
And stay tuned for more world reports and sport right after the ASEAN Window segment.
Vietnam is moving to produce computer bearing its own trademark. However, this plan progresses slowly as local computer producers are experiencing a dwindle market.
The production plan, which was proposed to the government by Vietnam Electronic Industries Association, has run on trial for several but failed to progress as sales were extremely low. For projected producers, including Vietnam Electronics and Informatics Corporation, Green Mekong Company, CMC company and TNH are capable of producing tens of thousands of personal computers per year, but low sales have turned them into distributors of world's well-known firms. Director of Gen Pacific company Lee Ngok-sun said that they have a disadvantage with the government's tax policy, which imposes a 10% import tax on both completely built units and the assembled ones. Production cost rises accordingly and their products become less competitive. Locally assembled PCs could hardly find their trademarks included in the government's procurement tenders, as the imported ones bid a lower price. Director of TNH company Lee Tan-ho said that the government doesn't say assembled PCs could be bought into infrastructure development projects, and they therefore don't have chance to lower price. Nguyen Xuan Tran, Vice Minister of Industry, said that they have asked the government to reconsider collection of value-added tax and other taxes from those involving in the pilot project. But more importantly, he thinks they have to wipe out trade frauds, which enable tax evaders win the supply contracts. Vietnam Electronic Industries Association and the Quality Directorate are building a computer quality testing room, which is expected to create equality in quality judgment of imported and locally assembled PCs.
We have seen them play football and paint pictures. Now, elephants in northern Thailand are showing off their musical abilities by playing in the world's first and only elephants orchestra.
In a quiet conservation park in Lampang province, 600 kilometers north of Bangkok, 9 elephants are making music. They are beating drums, tapping xylophones and blowing into harmonicas, thrilling tourists and students who travel to the Thai Elephant Conservation Center to see the animals in action. American-born Richard Lair has been working with elephants in the area for the past 20 years. He and his partner Dave Soldier came up with the idea to get the animals involved in music. He designed and helped make the massive industrial strength instruments which the elephants play, and says it doesn't take long to train them.
It's actually quite easy to teach them how to play most instruments, because you just sort of lightly grab onto their trunks and then run them through the movements that you want them to do, and they catch on very quickly.
One of the stars of the show is a 6-year male Luke Cop, which means tadpole in Thai. Richard first met Luke Cop when he was training elephants for the Walt Disney film Operation Dumbo Drop. After filming, the animal was donated to the conservation park. Richard says he has no doubt Luke Cop enjoys playing music.
You are watching the evening news.
For more than 160 years, the wooden marionettes of the Italian Cola family have traveled the world entertaining audience with a timeless satire on life. Having performed in Europe, the United States, South America, and throughout much of Asia, the puppets are slowly revealing the secrets of their success. The Italian marionettes of Carlo Cola have performed for generations. Neither age nor language have ever been an obstacle to enjoyment. Italian heirlooms 400 puppets from the century-old collection are appearing for the first time in Australia, performing the classic Round the World in 80 days at the annual Sydney Festival. In truth, the Carlo Cola and Sons Marionette Company has been around the world not in 80 days, but 165 years. After building a repertoire with private performances, the Cola family first presented public puppet shows in 1935 and has since performed throughout Europe, the United States, South America, and Asia. Artistic director Eugenio Monticola is a fifth-generation puppeteer. He says the marionettes teach people to understand various concepts about life. The challenge is not just for them to perform, but to give feeling and emotion. 400 marionettes, most about 80 centimeters tall, have been shipped from Italy. Each night, 14 puppeteers pull the strings from 3 meters above stage. On sports, we have tennis highlights from Australia and also the latest from Italy and South Africa. Bambang Suroso will bring us more on the details.
Good evening. Sports from Melbourne, Australia. Unfazed by the pressure of playing her first Grand Slam final, American Jennifer Capriati upset top-seeded Martina Hingis 6-4, 6-3 on Saturday to win the Australian Open in Melbourne. For Capriati, her first burst into the women's scene as a 14-year-old tennis prodigy in 1991, only to fall by the wayside. This was her first Grand Slam finals appearance, but she showed no signs of nerves and broke Hingis' serve twice for a 3-0 lead and then held serve for a 4-0 advantage in just 12 minutes. The 20-year-old Hingis was also a teenage sensation, winning 3 successive Australian Open titles from 1997 to 1999. She regrouped in the first set, broke Capriati and closed the deficit to 5-4. However, the American did not demur from her barrage of powerful ground strokes and held her service game to win the opening set 6-4. Hingis' confidence, particularly on her second serve, had been shaken in the first set, but it would be further stirred by an opponent with far more proof. Games went on service until the 5th game of the second set, when an increasingly frustrated Hingis complained of a questionable line call and then was then broken by Capriati 2 points later for a 3-2 lead. For Capriati, who had reached the semifinals of the French Open at 14, an Olympic gold medalist at 16, who had fallen on hard times, this was indeed the final cog in a tennis journey that has gone full circle. Capriati beat Hingis for the first time in their 6 meetings. Meanwhile, Arnaud Clément saved 2 match points to claw his way back from 2 sets down and beat his fellow Frenchman, Sébastien Grosjean 5-7, 2-6, 7-6, 7-5, and 6-2 in the Australian Open semifinals in Melbourne on Friday. 15-seed Clément will meet Andre Agassi of the United States in Sunday's men's singles final after the defending champion beat Australian Pat Rafter in 5 sets on Thursday. Grosjean looked to be heading towards his first Grand Slam final when he stretched into a 2 sets to 2-love lead and broke his close friend and doubles partner Clement at the start of the 3rd set. But the 16th seed failed to convert a match point at 5-3 on Clement's serve, then missed another when he served for the match at 5-4 to lose a set in a tie-break as Clement stormed back. Clement won the 4th to square the match at 2 sets, all then sealed victory in the 5th after the match lasting more than 4 hours. Clement's victory makes him the first Frenchman to reach an Australian Open final since Jean Borotra, one of the legendary musketeers of French tennis, won in 1928. From soccer, Inter Milan's Brazilian striker Ronaldo has been praised by compatriot Pelé for keeping his battle to return to fitness. But the player, regarded as the most talented of his generation, was unable to give a date for his return to action. Brazilian injury-stricken soccer star Ronaldo said at a news conference on Friday in Milan that he hoped to be back on the pitch in February, but would only return to play for his club Inter Milan when he is fully fit. Ronaldo has not played at all his season and is still recovering from a knee operation in April. After almost 5 months out, following a knee operation, he came on as a substitute against Lazio, only to be carried off when the knee collapsed in the middle of his first real piece of action. The Brazilian arrived back in Italy after another checkup in Paris with a French doctor, Gérard Soukbat, who performed the surgery. The former Barcelona forward has been undergoing physiotherapy and rehabilitation training in Brazil and France, but made a short visit to Milan this week to check in with his teammates. And from golf, Henny Otto of South Africa shot a under par 70 to retain a 1-shot lead as the second round of the South African Open Golf Championships drew to close in East London on Friday. Otto moved to a 9 under par total of 135, 1 shot clear of compatriot Roger Wessels and England's Greg Owen, who both shot 69s. Otto, who began his round at the 10th hole, dropped 4 shots in 5 holes after a double bogey at the 15th and bogeys at the 17th and 1st. However, a run of 5 birdies in the next 6 holes moved him back to the top of the leaderboard. 2 shots behind Otto were Welshman Bradley, Dredge with a 70, and Germany's Tobias Diaz 66. David Howell of England and Swede Mikael Lundberg both shot 67s for 6 under 138 totals, with a group of 4 South Africans, Bobby Lincoln 69 and Ignacio Garrido 73 on shot further back. And that ends the sports item. Now we go back to Dita and Rully.
That concludes our edition of the evening news for tonight. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for more news and information. I'm Dita Sukarno.
And I'm Rully Sukarno. Thank you for joining us and
good
night.